This is the mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
How are you? Good. And you? Good.
They don't have a table for my
Who grabs for the chair? These meetings are always more organized than this meeting. I don't understand what's going on.
I decided to make your work at it tonight.
That's actually more important. Will this come up to another vote, or is this it?
This is it.
Supposed to be.
So for something this big, as a resident of Kennebunkport, I wasn't notified we had this meeting until she told me an hour ago.
We didn't even have
It is posted.
It's
Where?
posted.
I think on the town website.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's been in the newspapers.
But usually there'll be
Need a mailing.
So
a bulletin board
I got
out
an
front
email.
there.
But everybody needs to get on the town.
Just kinda surprising.
I get emails because all the boards I serve on, but they need to get on the town newsletter emails. And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
True.
Town announcements.
But on this kind of thing, we should have a mass mailing to everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's called a
That's
special
expensive.
town meeting. It's a special town meeting.
That's a big decision.
It is a big decision. And it's up
It
to
just
some of
clapped.
us citizens.
We got 2 minutes, 3 minutes, we're almost
2 minutes, and
Well,
Warner
because
better
he
give
sends
me
a
those
letter
findings of fact.
4,000 people.
He's
$4,000.
probably out there.
Plus the cost to put it together.
I was told.
Well, look, we're totaling over a $10,000 option.
And I need the findings.
Nina, we're gonna start at 7, aren't we?
Not really.
I can
close.
start at 7:05 if it makes it easier.
Everyone be aware, we are live on the air. I'm trying to record 2 meetings at the same time. Here's the microphone for anybody that would normally be at the podium, which is in the other room.
I'm passing this down. I'll
That's a
take
podium.
Tom's out.
See you here. Put it here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Scott,
Thank you.
George,
All right, George.
Thank you. Do you have handouts for us? Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I was doing your job.
you can always set up a table and lean against that.
So we're on the air, you might want to explain to the viewing public, or should there be any? Not at
These
all.
mics all work too.
Oh, we do?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
You
Warner.
are on the air now, live.
Huge.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's assuming so.
Put this back here. Thank you.
I just drove from Boston. I've been
This
sitting.
is yours.
I've just been standing for an hour.
Speak about this at the end.
So I'm gonna showcase my ignorance, but what's the special meeting about?
The special meeting is the vote to basically create a $10 million bond to buy the 85-acre CN.
I was wondering what was going on with that property.
Yes.
It's still in process. This is a speculative,
Interesting.
Can I use that for 1 second?
yeah.
Thank you.
We decided this would be a way to keep the meetings shorter.
Okay, if I could have everyone's attention. It's 7:02, and I don't think waiting 3 more minutes for everybody to finish in there is going to be helpful. There is a town meeting going on, so the general public right now is standing because the chairs are all in the fire station. But I wanted to begin the meeting. The first item on the agenda, this is, let me just say, this is September 19th, okay, 2018. The Kennebunkport Planning Board. The first item on the agenda is item number 180201, Pinnacle Hill Phase
Nina.
2.
To the minutes.
Sorry about that. The first item on the agenda then are the minutes. And has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any changes, amendments? No?
They're
Okay.
good.
I'll take a motion then.
So
to-
moved.
And a second? Okay. Vote on the minutes then. I'll approve. Okay. You don't have a chair?
I volunteered.
Okay.
Does anyone want to sit?
All right, then, the minutes are approved. And now I'll
I have
take
a
the,
feeling.
Who's voting tonight?
okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, that's the 6 of us.
There are 6 of us. We only need 5 people on the committee.
That's right.
So,
Go for it, I'll sit back.
who voted last time? Was it Larry?
Larry, I was not here last time.
You were not here last time. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to make it Neil and Ed, myself and Scott and you,
Okay.
George. Okay?
Unless there's a continuity concern. If we're voting on something that Larry was party to.
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
no problem. Okay, now can we go to the first item on the minute? I'm glad I have you here. Okay,
Yeah.
second chair. Item number 180201, Pinnacle Hill Phase 2. This is the findings of fact for approval of 13-lot cluster subdivision on 24.78 acres plus Henchy Way, map 41, block 2, lot 8, in Goose Rock Shoreland and Resource Protection Zones. I want to make a comment before I read the findings of fact. There was a correction to the net residential area and the application, which states that there is 11.1 developed acres. The applicant wrote in a correction and asked to correct the Mylar from the June 29th plan that we had approved and voted on at the last meeting, the September 5th meeting. Okay? Werner and I discussed this, and we also discussed it with Amy, the attorney for the town. And the changes are reflected in an updated Mylar for signature and also in the findings of fact. And the reason that this is allowable after the vote, okay, is that Article 15 of the subdivision regs says that the appeal is taken from the written order of the board's decision, not from the vote to approve the final plan. So basically, there are 30 days from the signature or the approval of the findings of fact to appeal to the Superior Court. We might have a different outcome if it had to be taken from the vote of approval. And Article 9 then, because the change is non-substantive, it does not rise to the level of a revision, even minor, and what is illustrated and the lot and the right-of-way acreages and everything else is correct. So the plan as illustrated is correct. It's just a change in a couple of numbers. And I've made note of that in the findings of fact. And since I'm the case manager, I will read the findings of fact. The application number is 180201. Pinnacle Hill Subdivision Phase 2, Kennebunkport, Maine. This is the final subdivision application. to establish a 13-lot subdivision to be known as Binnacle Hill Phase 2, New Bedford Road in Kennebunkport. Following a review pursuant to the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and land use ordinance and a public hearing held on August 15, 2018, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings and conclusions and renders the following decision. Findings of fact are as follows. 1. The applicant is Bale Development, LLC, 88 York Street, No. 3, Kennebunk, Maine, 04043. 2. The property consists of 2 parcels, a 24.8 acre parcel called the hereinafter called the Gaynor parcel, and the lower part of Henchy Way, which we're calling the Ritchie parcel. The property is identified as Map 41, Block 2, Lot 8, on the municipal assessor's map. However, as shown in the assessor's map, the property does not include the Ritchie parcel, which is intended to become part of the subdivision. 3, a letter dated April 9, 2018, amending this application to include the Ritchie parcel was submitted by the applicant's attorney. 4, the owners of the Gayor parcel are Babak Gayor and Ann P. Gayor of 25 Fairbanks Road, Lexington, Massachusetts, 02421. A warranty deed for this property is recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 15172, pages 0199 through 0202. Bale Development, LLC, has a legal interest in the property through a purchase and sales agreement between Bale Development and its member, Jeffrey D. Bowley, and Babak Gayor and Ann P. Gayor, dated August 23, 2017. The Ritchie parcel is currently owned by John Charles Ritchie and Cheryl A. Ritchie, P.O. Box 677, Scarborough, Maine, 04074. The deed for this property is recorded in Book 10616, page 144, in the York County Registry of Deeds. Bale Development, LLC, has a legal interest in the Ritchie parcel through a purchase and sales agreement between GSM Holdings and John Charles Ritchie and Cheryl A. Ritchie, dated March 27, 2018, which was assigned by GSM Holdings to Bale Development, LLC, on April 9, 2018. 6, the property is located in the Goose Rock Zone with portions of the property in the Shoreland and Resource Protection Zones. 7, the applicant is represented by Teradyne Consultants, LLC, 565 Congress Street, Suite number 310, Portland, Maine, 04101. The application was found complete on August 1, 2018. 9, in a final application dated June 29, 2018, the applicant proposes to divide the property into 13 lots of approximately 22,000 to 43,000 square feet. The net residential area of the property is approximately 751,000 square feet. Of the total acreage of the parcel, 12.9 acres will be developed. 10, in an earlier application, the net residential area of the property was listed as approximately 741,000 square feet, and the developed portion was indicated to be 11.1 acres. The areas stated in Section 9 above are corrections that are representative of the modifications made to the original plan, but not written into the revised application. These changes are not substantive, as they do not trigger review of any decisions made by the board or require reconfiguration of the plans to meet Kennebunkport subdivision regulations. 11, the total open space of the Gayor parcel provided is approximately 615,000 square feet, of which 478,000 is upland with the remainder wetland. The proposed lots meet the cluster zoning requirements of the land use ordinance and the subdivision regulations as documented in the provided print set. 12, the applicant proposes to deviate from the subdivision regulations in the following ways. A, the applicant proposed a waiver from Section 12(2)(b)(3)(b)(4), in wetland areas so that the side slopes in wetlands crossings may be steeper than 3:1, horizontal to vertical. The applicant proposes a new road, Timberway, wherein the proposed design includes a 2:1 roadside slope in areas where the road crosses wetland areas in order to minimize the area of impact. B, the applicant proposes that Timberway be approximately 1,492 feet in length and 24 feet in width, with a 3-foot esplanade and a 5-foot wide sidewalk. Section 12(2)(b)(2)(h) of the subdivision regulations limits a dead-end road to 1,000 feet and a cul-de-sac turnaround with specific limits for the radius. The board agrees to a 492-foot deviation from this design guideline, given the added emergency vehicle access off of Henchy Way to supplement the road. The board also agrees to having a hammerhead turnaround rather than the guideline of cul-de-sac to better handle the emergency and maintenance access and to minimize environmental impacts to the surrounding wetlands and sensitive habitats on the site. C, the applicant proposes to deviate from section 12(2)(b)(2)(f) of the subdivision regulations in that shared driveways for lots 25 and 26 and 27 and 28 will have a 30-foot wide shared access and utility easement with 12-foot wide driveways in order to minimize environmental impacts to the surrounding wetlands in front of these lots. 13, these waiver requests were reviewed by Acorn Engineering, see below, and other sections, and were found acceptable in a memorandum of June 18, 2018. 14, the board grants these waivers for the reasons given above and on the basis of Acorn Engineering's recommendations. 15, the board has determined that the proposed access gate on Henchy Way for emergency vehicles does not conflict with the gate prohibition of 11(5)(b)(1) of the subdivision regulations, since that requirement relates to gated developments and restriction of regular traffic, not to emergency access gates. 16, the applicant has provided a plan for Henchy Way in the applicant's revised subdivision plans, wherein Henchy Way will remain a gated private way, will be paved 12-foot wide drive for access by pedestrians, bicyclists, and emergency vehicles only. It will be plowed in the winter with accumulated snow stored near the end of Timberway Hammerhead turnaround. A sign will be posted on Henchy Way near Kings Highway, informing the public it is a private dead-end way and no parking is allowed there. The board agrees with this plan. 17, the applicant will remove a Norway spruce tree on proposed lot 21, and as an alternative, a 15-foot wide landscape buffer will be established along the southern property of lot 21 as a visual buffer between this lot and the Miller abutter property. 18, a forested area in lots 17, 18, 19, and 20, as shown in the final revised plan, is to be maintained as a buffer between these lots and the abutting lots along the subdivision's south and southwest borders. 19, several peer reviews of the plan on behalf of the town were received. One was a traffic peer review by Thomas A. Ario, P.E. at T.Y. Lin International, dated April 10, 2018. Two peer reviews were completed by William H. Savage, P.E. at Acorn Engineering, dated April 3, 2018, and June 18, 2018. Their comments were addressed by the applicant and appropriate modifications made as a result thereof in a revised plan submitted on June 29, 2018. 20, all lots will be on public sewer. 9 of the lots will feature individual grinder pumps. The remaining lots will flow to the public sewer system by gravity flow. The private sewer extension application was reviewed by Thomas S. Greer, P.E. of Walsh Engineering Associates, and approved by the Kennebunkport Wastewater Division. The Kennebunkport Planning Board approved a memorandum to request the Kennebunkport Board of Selectmen to approve the extension. 21. All lots will be connected to the Kennebunkport, and Wells public water supply. 22, electrical and telecommunications cables will be installed underground. 23, a stormwater management report has been prepared and updated in response to comments by Acorn Engineering. 24, preliminary assistance for the layout of the proposed subdivision regarding a vernal pool on the property, wetland crossing, and spotted turtle habitat has been received from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, MDEP, United States Army Corps of Engineers, USACOE, and the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, MDIFW. 25, the Kennebunkport Highway Department and the Town of Kennebunkport Fire Chief have reviewed the application. 26, the applicant provided evidence of adequate technical and financial capacity. 27, the applicant provided an estimate of total project costs at $1.05 million. The code enforcement officer agrees with that the estimates covered the necessary elements of the project to be covered by the performance guarantee required from the applicant per Article 13 of the subdivision regulations. Conclusion. The criteria of Title 30A MRSA, paragraph 4404, and the standards of the town's subdivision regulations have been met, subject to the conditions enumerated below. Decision. In accordance with Articles 7, 8, and 9 of the Town of Kennebunkport subdivision regulations, entitled 30A MRSA, paragraph 4404, the Planning Board grants approval of the applicant's final plan application. Conditions of approval. 1, this approval must be recorded with the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of approval, or it becomes null and void unless an extension is granted by the board in writing. 2, approval of this application is dependent upon applicant receiving all necessary state and/or federal permits prior to any construction. A copy of the permits must be filed with the Code Enforcement Office within 1 week of receipt. 3, prior to any permits being issued or any lots being sold, applicant will execute and record right, title, and interest in the property through a deed or deeds recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds. 4, prior to any permits being issued or any lot being sold, the applicant will post a performance guarantee that complies with Article 13 of the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and is satisfactory to the town manager. The amount of the guarantee will be based on actual bids for construction. 5, final plan updates shall include any lot line changes required for final MDEP and/or ACOE approval, and any restrictions shall be included in the final open space deed. 6, the applicant will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances and subdivision regulations, and of all applicable federal and state regulations and approvals, as well as those specified in the final application, all of which are incorporated herein by reference. Dated September 19, 2018. Questions, comments? No. Okay. All right, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, the motion is approved unanimously, and we're set to sign. I'm going to need those.
So on that note, before you all leave, there are paper copies and Mylars over on the table with the pens over there. If you would sign, I would ask that you make sure that you sign in the same line on each one. So. Yeah. The registry doesn't like it whenever your signatures are all over the place.
That's one. Sorry. Let's send it
It's an
down
easy
here
one.
first.
That's an easy regulation to live
Thank you.
That's right.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sign on the same line.
Can we do the Mylar right now, right?
You certainly can.
I'm going to do it right now. I forget.
Okay, Scott, have an outdoor. Oh, thank you. There you go. Coming back.
You want the paper copy and the Mylar signed?
Yes, please, yes. And there's two, so make sure you get the one underneath it as well. There's two of each. Those are great. Aren't they tasty? Oh, they're so good. Yeah. Starbucks, if you've ever, had a Starbucks when you're at the airport or something, they've got their own. Really good too. Yeah. There's a lot of flavor. So I didn't vote, so I don't sign. So Nina, since I didn't vote, I don't sign, right? Okay. So I'm signing no. How's that?
No.
And I didn't sign. But I'll sign it after.
Yeah, go ahead and sign. Go ahead and
Okay.
sign. Even if you didn't vote.
Our tradition has been that we all sign.
Oh, we didn't?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I gotta
They
get
got me the same way.
I gotta get it back.
I'll send the Mylars too.
Oh, that's on my list too. Oh, okay. All right.
Same line.
Same line. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I think Larry's handling that.
Five Ward Road.
Okay. There's the two.
That's yours.
Those two.
Do I hand them to you? Yep. Okay.
Are they signed all through?
So then sign on the same line.
If they're not all signed, let's take them down here.
I have them signed.
Okay,
We need the signatures down here.
so coming up to vote.
We're gonna vote.
Are we allowed to adjourn to go vote?
I think you can call a recess.
Do a recess? Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a recess of 5 minutes to vote in the other room for the town meeting. And we'll return at about 7:30.
Bring your card.
Well, it's being recorded. Now, they can only. So we're voting.
Can you,
Be right back.
are you allowed to? Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Just keep in mind the mics are still live. Okay. Still recording, or still broadcasting.
It's good to know.
You're it. Today's the 19th.
Yeah. So, what's it was a $10 million bond to purchase, speculative to purchase that property.
That's right.
Does that include anything else, or that's just the 5%?
That's it.
Obviously, something's happening where, or not happening.
The ayes have it.
Yep. Yeah, and then, yeah, you can, well, those have to get recorded as well, so.
Yeah, that's right, when it's just a speculative
That was
change.
the big one.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Okay, The vote being taken at the special town meeting, we're back in session. This September 5th Kennebunkport Planning Board meeting. We're on to item number 2.
Sorry?
Okay. That's item 180702, John and Elizabeth Chambers Site Plan Review. The findings of fact for approval to construct a new single-family residence to include a volume expansion at 5 Ward Road, identified as Assessor's Tax Map 22, Block 5, Lot 12, in Case Porpoise West, Shoreline Resource Protection Zones. Larry?
Thanks for that introduction, Nina. So, to recap, this is the reading of the findings of fact for the property known as 5 Ward Road, application number 180702. The application made by John and Elizabeth Chambers. So, following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on 15th of August and the 5th of September 2018, and a public hearing held on 5th of September 2018, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions, and renders the following decision subject to the
You're going to have to be a little louder. I think I got
subject to the conditions enumerated below. So, is that okay?
Yeah,
All right.
It's just when they open the door.
So the findings of fact are as follows. The applicant is John and Elizabeth Chambers, the applicant, with mailing address of 1064 North Tamiami Trail, Sarasota, Florida, 34236. The property has a street address of 5 Ward Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The property is identified as map 22, block 5, lot 12 in the municipal tax assessor's maps. The property is located in the Cape Porpoise West zone, substantially in the shoreline zone with the 250...
Why don't you wait for a second, Larry?
Okay,
if
I'm
they're
waiting.
Bringing chairs in.
Okay, we're having a timeout for chair's arrival. That's
Now
okay.
you can put one of those chairs up against the door.
Yeah.
Okay, continue, Larry.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no problem. So, okay. So I was just on item 4. The property is located in the Cape Porpoise West zone, substantially in the shoreland zone, which has got a 250-foot overlay of the lot. And the lot is partially in the Resource Protection Zone, which is the tidal and riverine FEMA 100-year floodplain. The applicant authorized the firm of Lower Village Survey and Dewston Construction, Arundel, Maine, to prepare documents and plans supporting the application. The applicant represented themselves in the proceedings on both the 15th of August and the 5th of September, with support from Mr. Sean Dewston, the contractor. The applicant has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a trustee's deed by personal representatives recorded in York County Registry of Deeds, Book 17632, page 476, on the 26th of December 2017. The property comprises 1.83 acres to the high water mark and contains a single-family residence of 2,414 square feet of living space per survey and on-site measurement data provided by the applicant. The lot is legally conforming with the 250-foot shoreland zone overlay, but the structure is legally non-conforming since it is located entirely outside of the building envelope for the lot. Based on survey data provided by the applicant, both the existing structure and the proposed structure are entirely inside the area defined by the 75-foot setback from the coastal wetlands high water mark, and both the existing structure and proposed structure are entirely inside the 250-foot shoreline zone overlay. So, in an application dated the 25th of July 2018, the applicant proposes to remove the entire existing house of 2,414 square feet, which is 36,090 cubic feet, and build a new house with substantially the same living space of 2,488 square feet, 44,140 cubic feet in the exact same location. The applicant reasoned and the board agreed that this met sections 8.3.b.1, .2, .3, and .5 of the land use ordinance, which allows a one-time expansion of a replacement structure of up to 30% of the size of the original structure, and requires that the replacement structure comply with the setbacks to the greatest practical extent. Okay, so in addition to the original site plan application package, the applicant provided supplemental documents. A current and revised survey and site plan was provided for reference at the 15th of August Planning Board meeting, a set of plans and elevations for the proposed new house, and a copy of the applicant's main DEP permit by rule notification form to remove existing dwelling structure, build new dwelling structure in same location. Number 11, the applicant provided photos with relevant comments describing an inspection of the existing structure's foundation and framing. The inspection found both foundation and framing to be in need of substantial remediation, leading to the recommendation that the entire structure and foundation should be removed and replaced with a new structure to conform to current building code requirements for Kennebunkport. The applicants have requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. First, the proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the land use ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable state or federal law. Finding yes. Comment, the proposed replacement of a non-conforming structure satisfies the requirements of the land use ordinance 8.3.b.5. Non-conforming setbacks are minimized to the extent feasible by building the replacement structure in the exact same footprint as the existing one. The proposed increase in living space or volume is within the one-time 30% increase allowed in 8.3.b.1. Non-conformances are not increased. The applicant assured the board that the new structure would be well landscaped and any vegetation damaged or removed during demolition and construction will be replaced in accordance with the land use ordinance. Next, the proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding yes. The proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. Finding yes, it's residential lighting only. The provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. Findings not applicable. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. Finding yes, its comment is a single-family residence. The provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety. Finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by a reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. Comment, proposed structure, architecture is consistent with the neighborhood. Next, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by a reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding yes. Comment, the south and east portion of the lot is inside the 2017 proposed flood line AE 12 foot. Adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding yes. Comment is public sewer, which is no change from the existing structure. Adequate provision will be made to control erosion or sedimentation. Finding yes. Comment, the adequate measures will be implemented to control erosion and runoff during demolition and construction. Applicant advised the board that the contractor does not anticipate any issues with runoff. Adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site. Finding yes. Comment, no changes are planned to the site elevation or grade. The proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes. Finding yes. Comment, it's public water, no change from existing structure. Then adequate provision has been made for transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law. Finding not applicable. The proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion. Finding yes. Its comment is it's a single-family residence. The existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy. Finding not applicable. So when a proposed development will be located within the shoreland and or resource protection zones, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, the townwide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7. Approval of the development will also require the board makes positive findings based on the information presented, that the proposed use will maintain will maintain safe and healthful conditions. Finding yes. Will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters. Finding yes. Will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater. Finding yes. Comments of public sewer, no change from existing structure. Will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. Finding yes. Will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters. Finding not applicable. Will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan. Finding not applicable. Will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use. Finding yes. Is in conformance with the performance standards set forth in Section 5.6 of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Finding yes. Comment, adequate erosion control measures will be incorporated into the demolition and construction process. So, the conclusions are that Article 10.10.A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. So the decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. So conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 10.12.E. First, the applicant pursuant to 10.12.E shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project, and the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. So the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances as well as the main DEP approvals, dated 19th of September 2018. So any comments or questions or feedback?
Sounded good.
Sounded fine?
Yeah.
Okay, can we have a motion then to approve findings of fact?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, vote, okay.
I think
Did you vote, Charles?
I think Larry
Oh,
should vote.
am I
You gotta
voting on
vote.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm voting in favor.
Okay. Vote in favor unanimously. Okay, if you pass those down.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'll sign them and
All right,
poor Ralph can get out of here.
okay. Should I sign first?
Yeah, go ahead. Charles should sign too.
Yep. So, let me start there.
I'm signing as well?
I think so.
Who's not
That's
signing?
what we've been doing.
Okay, and while we're doing that, let's take up application number 180801, Jeffrey and Andrea Bove. Is it Bove? Bove, okay. Site plan review. This is the public hearing for approval to use a portion of their driveway to serve 3 dwellings at 405 Mills Road. And that's Assessor's Tax Map 42, Block 2, Lot D, and the Goose Rocks Beach Zone. And before I open the public hearing, we have received a letter from a member of the public, and I hope that everybody's received that by now and had a chance to read it. Is that,
Do we have copies?
Yes.
it was in the email. It was
Yeah.
just an
There's some
email.
extra copies here.
Oh,
I don't
I
know
see
if
that and everything.
Lisa ever,
I believe there were hard copies in your
are there hard
folder, but,
copies? Okay.
I have an extra copy here if you need one.
Okay. And
Do you have a copy?
I'd like you to get up and just give an overview, and if you'd like to address that letter, that's fine. And then we'll open the public hearing.
Would you like me to use the microphone?
Yes.
Yes.
Please, yeah.
The letter that was written by Kath.
First identify yourself.
Oh, my name's Jeffrey Bove. The letter that was written by Catherine Madden suggests without data that there would be some increased runoff from the development of the road.
Is that microphone on? Okay.
Green light?
Green light. Increased runoff that would adversely affect her property by means of erosion. And we're not planning on developing the road, but more than that, her property in entirety lies substantially uphill of ours. And in fact, we are the watershed for the entire perimeter of her property into the stream that she's calling a runoff ditch. Do you have the response I made?
yeah.
It's part of the email.
We got that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also brought the wetland map, which shows the direction of stream flow, if you want a copy of that. But basically, I'm only doing this to streamline the process because it's just not a
Okay.
claim that holds any water.
Okay.
I didn't plan that, by the way.
I also drove out and visited the site, just to take a look. And, I mean, based on what I saw in terms of the drive, the drive location that's there, I didn't have any concerns regarding runoff onto the neighbor's property.
Okay.
Neighbor's property is of a significant distance away from where this access is located.
And higher up, elevation.
Great.
Is the neighbor's property higher up?
I mean, I didn't double check it with the town's topography, but certainly, where this drive is located is well away from the abutting property.
Would you like to see added proof? I have photographs of the property.
No.
It's about a 20-foot.
I do have a question.
Sure.
I was struck by her letter suggesting that you were going to enlarge a portion of your driveway. And I thought we talked last time about the fact that there was to be no development, construction. All we were considering was an
The use.
application to change the use.
Her letter suggested an enlargement of the driveway. My first response under the first part of hers in italics was, we're not planning on changing anything.
So this approval, were we to give it, will be for a change in use
Only a change in use.
and not for development or changing the grade or making
Right.
any physical change to the
But
property.
again, any change or erosion that would happen, no matter what, would run into that stream, which is entirely on our property.
No, I understand that.
Right, okay, separate issue is
but-
what you're saying.
Since I'm charged with writing up the findings of fact here, I just wanted to be crystal clear
Sure.
on what it was we were being asked to adjudicate and what permissions we were giving. Question for Werner. if at some point the private road were to be changed, to be graded, regraded, or to be paved in some manner, would there be a permit required for that? Or would there be an application to the planning board having to be made?
So certainly not for paving. As we treat gravel roads and paved roads the same in terms of perviousness or imperviousness, and and also say in
It's not
terms
shoreland
of
anyways.
in terms of grading, it's pretty common for private roads to get to get graded, as a maintenance item,
Yeah.
that doesn't require a permit. I did do a field measurement of the driveway in question that currently provides an approved access to one of the parcels, and it measures at 16 feet.
Which is what's
Correct.
required, which is great. Thank you. I will have several more questions, but
Sure.
we can wait until after the public meeting, public hearing, if that's.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I'll open the public hearing to abutters. Any abutter that wants to talk? And not hearing anyone come up, I'll open it to the general public. If anybody would like to come up and make a comment? No? Okay, well, in that case, we'll close the public hearing. All right. And, any more comments, questions from the board?
I have several that I
Okay.
need some help with, again, in order to
Why don't you go ahead?
get the documentation straight. I have 4 deeds that you gave me. And I was hoping that you could help me make sure I understand what each one was. I know the language is incredibly precise, but it's also
Confusing.
obtuse. It's very difficult. So the first one I have, it says it's the original deed to 405 Mills Road, and original means when you purchased the property. Do I understand correctly that the 2 of the right-of-ways, that the right-of-ways were subsequently transferred to separate deeds?
I can clear up all your questions really quickly.
That'll be helpful.
So we bought a 10-acre lot with a
Right.
driveway to a house. Then we bought a 4-acre parcel with the intent to subdivide that into 2 lots, or 1 or 2 lots, depending on what the market was, which we've now done. And because we had the access to that lot, and the previous owners really didn't have any good access to the lot, because we
And that's-
already
that's-
have the curb cut, yes.
That
Want me to-
4 acres is what A and B are.
May I show you?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so we bought this 4 acres separately from the Bryants, and that was
Got it.
as a separate about 8 years ago. All this was just to be very, very precise regarding what the easement was to
Understood.
allow access here and to allow access here. And this became quite complicated in a way because, and I had Leon Blood and Chris Copey, Leon Blood from Lower Village Survey, and Chris Copey is a wetland expert with Albert
No,
Frick and
I'm not
Associates.
questioning the accuracy, I'm
Sure.
only trying to gain an understanding.
So the right-of-way 1, right-of-way 2, right-of-way 3 are, basically it's one easement through our property where we push this piece here to satisfy the lot width requirements of the Kennebunkport ordinance to have 100 feet. And the driveway that they will end up developing goes in majority along that particular right-of-way. This is just the language that the surveyor used.
And so they could not get access to Mills Road because the curb cut's too close to their property?
They could easily have access to Mills
They
Road.
could.
Here, it would just be a financial
Oh,
impediment.
okay.
Pretty big.
But these guys couldn't.
This
You
is
have to have a
220.
certain
Lot B could
distance,
not.
don't you?
Oh,
B
sure,
could
but this
not,
is,
but the
this
rest
is hundreds of feet, this is hundreds of feet.
Okay.
There's plenty of access. This is vacant,
This is Ms. Madden's.
right? There's no curb cut there at all.
It's more of a, I think it's more of a practical issue.
Correct.
The reality of it is that there's a big ditch, out in the front there.
Oh, right.
And so, practically speaking, I think it always makes sense to use the existing accesses if you can, as
So-
opposed to
And-
creating more.
Okay, so that makes
So,
sense.
and so what happens is the Wolves who bought this parcel, they have a deeded right-of-way that comes from here to here, but they don't have an easement that covers this. We also have a road use agreement for the common shared easement.
So say that again. The Wolves
The Wolves bought
have
this- right.
easement to right-of-way 1 and right-of-way 2?
No, just here.
Just right-of-way 1?
Right.
Which is enough to get them to their driveway?
Correct. I should
Okay.
have brought it in here.
Nope.
But $5,000 later. The right-of-way 2 and over here is only, this section will be only for access to this lot. And
Right now, right-of-way 2 is owned by you,
all of the right-of-ways, all the
but
easements.
the land is,
The land is owned by us. And this has been
Right.
incorporated by deed into this parcel.
say that again?
This,
Right-of-way 3?
this right-of-way 3 was incorporated by deed into this parcel.
But they're two separate deeds.
Yes.
This
These
parcel-
have never been included in a deed here, but what we had to do technically and for legal reasons, and in fact, for recording reasons, it had to go A, B, C, D, not A, B, D, C. We had to record giving them the right-of-way with this deed.
Giving,
We had to record,
Wolf.
right, all the deeds are
giving
because we
Lot
had
A.
to record the
The easement,
rights of way and the easements to her on the 2 lots. Then we had to, it was complicated. There actually are 4 deeds. But the end one is that this deed has a deeded easement here. This lot currently owned solely by Andrea.
you gotta go a
Okay.
little more slowly
Sure.
for me. This property,
Right.
Lot A, which is owned by the Wolves,
Mm-hmm.
has a deeded right-of-way to right-of-way 1.
Yes,
Okay. That right-of-way 1, there is a deed which transfers that right-of-way 1 from your original 10-acre deed
right.
to a separate deed.
No,
No.
it transfers it to this lot.
Gives rights of use.
Right.
It's easement.
Yeah, it gives
It's
rights
just
of
the
use.
easement.
Yeah.
Easement and right-of-way become confused in terms of definitions here as well.
The original deed still covers those
10
10
acres,
acres, no more, no less.
Correct.
No change. It happens that there's 2 right-of-ways that were a part of those 10 acres
No.
that,
We fabricated those just last spring. We created
the
those
land
last spring.
that those right-of-ways give right-of-way to is still a part of those 10 acres,
Yes.
though. So that original deed is still pertinent.
Yes, the original deed has been amended only to include this piece here.
And do I not have that one? Is that what you're saying? This
I'm
is
not
the-
sure.
This is the deed for Lot B. The easements and right-of-ways are included for right-of-way 1,
This
right-of-way
is
2.
the deed transferring right-of-way 3 to Jeffrey and Andrea Bove. This gives frontage to Lot B as per Kennebunkport ordinances.
So this is transferring the land.
Transferring this land into this land. And this is a nuance of our ordinances that requires a lot width. And this is the defined lot width for this back lot.
Okay. So this has been added to the 10
Yes.
acres.
This 30, what's that,
Got it.
3,800 square feet.
So this, you're saying the original one now has been modified by,
This has
I'm sorry.
been added to this.
This is,
yeah.
these two are added. This is an update to that. Is there one current deed, or is there two
He said that
current
wasn't
deeds?
required. It becomes part of it and as far
The
as the
two
county goes.
together
Right.
comprise
Right.
the ownership, thank you. Then the deed for Lot A just gives rights to right-of-way 1 to the Wolves,
Yes,
and the deed for right-of-way B gives access to, gives easements to whoever purchases Lot B. Right-of-way
Correct.
1, 2, and 3. Easements.
easements, yeah.
Thank you. That
I
wasn't
thought
so
it was
hard,
really
it?
complicated as well.
Oh, no, it's very easy.
Was the concern merger
To read a
of
deed
title?
like that.
No, it was just, Actually, the hard part here was the topography, because this is just extremely ledgy with bubbles. And we have, you know, that when the buyers of this land come to overcome the wetland regulations the way they are now, since this wetland comes into play. We have a balance between wetlands that are basically over here on this map, but over here, which I have as well, and the topography with the bubbles, with the granite bubbles. And on balance, and this is not actually relevant to this, but we could have had their lot width along this line here, but that would have been or even here. There are very many options, and then I chose with Leon Blood to actually make it there, and it's the best looking and least invasive way to get access to that property is what we all thought.
So this is a common struggle that we deal with, especially on older properties, where you have right-of-ways that were developed on paper, but the practical reality of locating it out in the field became a completely different animal. And so you had a right-of-way that showed up on paper,
Yeah.
and then the guy building the road would come in later on and say, well, geez, well, that doesn't make sense to go that way, and he would go out and around this way. And then, so you wound up, you know, essentially with two easements. You know, you have the one that's been deeded, and then you have this road that was established that doesn't follow the bounds. And so in this particular case, you actually have a road that is actually within the right-of-way.
We went to great pains, as you can see,
Yeah.
with great pains with
Well,
the
just the way it's
surveyors to make
described,
it
you can tell that it's
Yeah.
been, it's almost like
like legal
the-
documents.
the legal documents haven't caught up with the technology. Wouldn't a picture have been, right, more helpful? But
Certainly it avoids issues in the future, and it's, again, like I said, it's a common one that we deal with where, you know, you have you have an easement on paper, or on on a survey, and then the road is in a totally different location. So, or it comes outside of the bounds. Well, you just experienced some of that with, with Pinnacle Hill, where Henchy is outside of the bounds of the, outside of the bounds of the right of way. And so, we, when we know better, we do better. And so
Yeah.
try to actually get the road in the right of way.
sensible,
And here, at a larger scale, this stream
yeah.
is right here. See
Existing gravel drive.
that's part of our drive. But this boundary right here, I'm indicating with my
Oh, yes,
glasses,
yes.
is this one here, and there's a cemetery marked. There's a
yeah,
cemetery
yeah.
marked, and the actual stream that all of this land drains into, and in fact, there's a culvert here, and it drains this way, and this stream is Beaver Brook Pond drains into our land as well. That's right here. That's a 30-foot buffer
Oh, yeah.
between, see, this is about 30 feet.
Yeah.
And this is all forested wetland. And that, as I said, this is a stone and clay-based actual stream now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks.
I do have
sure.
one other aspect, and again, in that same spirit, I just want to be able to document this properly. If I go look, the land use ordinance tells me that a driveway private road for 3 detached dwellings must be approved by the planning board. Here we are. And the right-of-way shall not be not less than 33 feet wide, which the survey shows, and the traveled way must be not less than 16 foot wide in width, which the survey also shows. So I'm easy to say we've met that portion of the paragraph. I just want to walk you down through the next couple of sentences and ask you to help me
Sure.
answer them. It says the travel way shall be not less than 16 feet in width of gravel, of hard durable particles free from vegetative matter, 16 inches thick after compaction. What would you say to that?
In parts, it's 16 inches or 20 inches. In some parts, it's about 4 feet.
Okay,
I've added, since we've lived there, because we grade it regularly, because we want no potholes on our roads. I mean, it's, and it comes down like this, and people get stuck. So over the, if you've ever plowed, you know what happens to gravel driveways.
do you attest to the fact that it's,
Yes.
it satisfies?
And I went out, and Werner went out, but I actually had this for the last meeting. I measured it every 10 feet, and I took did you see the paint marks? So I measured it, and it was conservatively 16 feet or better. There was one spot where it was 15 feet, 8 inches. And there's one part where it came out to 25 feet, where it branches up.
Inches or feet?
Inches.
Oh,
Inches.
yeah, 25, yeah,
Inches, okay.
feet. But the
Deep.
depth of
We're
it,
talking
the
depth.
depth of it, if we went out and took core samples, it would be 16 inches or better. We had that done, we had it amended. The road's been there since 2003, or it was a logging road from far before that. And we amended the road when we moved in to Don Bryant's standard, which means he needs to get his truck down there, and you need to be able to get those fire trucks down there. And it's been a really, really good road.
Do you have any comment, Werner, on this question
No.
or this aspect? Okay. Drainage swales must have slopes no steeper than 3 to 1. I take it that's not a problem.
I actually went out with a protractor.
Yep. You read this paragraph too, didn't you?
Yeah, we designed the whole thing around the ordinances,
I
yeah.
see.
How big a protractor?
Actually, a goniometer. So about this big.
And the center line of the roadway shall be not more than 3 feet off the center line of the right-of-way. And it sounds like that's been
We
met
had
as
them
well.
go from the center line of the existing driveway to the, each way, so it's not more than about that much. That's why there's so
Thank
many
you.
marks on the,
Yep.
yeah, it's just not a general thing. We did the right-of-way to match the road as opposed to doing the road within the right-of-way.
Appreciate your help.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you.
That's it. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the,
A second.
before that, wait,
I
don't we,
move.
do we have standards to meet? Do we have to go through the 1010 for this? Warner?
I mean, it is a site plan, it is a site plan review
Okay.
that's required, that's required for this.
Well, does anyone have any concerns about any of the restrictions on 1010A?
No, in particular, because there's no work being done. There's no construction being done. All we're asked for is to say that this driveway be usable by 2 more lots, essentially. No change in grade or, so to me, there wasn't any concern other than did it meet the regulation
Right.
of 614.
Right, and that would be 1010 A1,
Right,
basically.
right. And of course, it's not shoreland or RP, so that, you know,
Right, we don't have
lifts-
those
lifts
restrictions,
some of your
right.
concern as well.
Okay. Well, then I'll go back to the motion is made and second on the motion. Okay. All those in favor to approve? Okay.
We'll get your findings of fact
Are you
next
voting?
meeting. I did.
Is there,
Oh, okay.
so is this what we were asking for? We have a conditional approval? This is an approval
This
based?
is an
You have an
approval.
approval.
You have an
Right, good,
approval,
great.
and now what will happen is Ed will write up the findings of fact, which we hope to have available by the next meeting.
Great.
And then we'll read the findings of fact, and once we approve that and sign it, and it gets notarized, you need to record it in the registry of deeds.
What do we record?
The findings of fact.
Findings of fact.
That
Okay.
will run with the property. So we're approved, but we have
Right.
to wait for the written findings of fact that get recorded after that.
That's
So the
right.
next meeting is the second in October.
The next meeting would be in October.
First
First.
It's
Wednesday.
the
First
first Wednesday in October.
But Werner,
Yep.
what activity would be gated by that, having the findings of fact recorded? There's no permit being pulled or construction happening? Is there anything that this is gating?
No, I mean, so you verbally approved it this evening. I mean, it does require that it be recorded before any permits are pulled. You know, if I'm drawing a nice neat bow around this, then it would be something that I would want to see recorded before issuing a building permit for the back lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so it
We
might,
have it
it might
scheduled.
affect negotiations,
We have a scheduled closing on the 5th,
Okay.
but I can drive
No-
over on the
no
4th if
pressure.
you'll sign it.
no pressure. Yeah.
But we have verbal, we're okay.
Okay,
Yeah. The
This is-
closing is fine, the sale would be fine.
okay.
Okay. but
long as the
before
fire's
any
not
building
going, we're all set.
permits are issued
That's
by
right.
the
It's
code
before,
enforcement
it's before the
officer.
issuance of the.
But I'll go over on the,
permit.
if it gets signed, I'll just drive over. I look forward to that kind of trip. That's fun. They're really nice over there.
The courthouse is fun there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it too. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you all.
welcome.
Thanks for your understanding.
Okay. The last item on the agenda, other business, is continued discussion regarding the telecommunication ordinance changes. And I think Werner has provided the full ordinance now,
Yes.
which
Thank you.
nobody has had a chance to read,
Yeah,
because he's
so-
just provided.
So this has been entertaining in a very kind of twisted sort of way. Sure. In the fact that when we go to try to find an electronic version of the 1999 ordinance, it was difficult to find one in a format that we could utilize today.
Oh, God.
So,
It's on floppy disk somewhere.
yeah. So, and
Thank you.
I can't speak as to why the electronic version that was available on the website was missing sections 10 through 15.
Probably
But-
because someone tried to transfer from a floppy disk.
So, anyway, so what you have in front of you now is so we essentially incorporated the two, and I did this just, at the board's request. Understand that with me adding, section 10 through 15, that's not the official warrant. But what you have now in front of you is the complete, is the complete ordinance with proposed revisions included in it, so.
So there were no proposed revisions to 10 through 15?
Correct.
Okay.
Apparently.
Well, no one had them to revise,
There you
so.
go. Okay.
Right.
Thanks for doing that, Werner.
Also correct.
And we still have smokestacks in there.
So I apologize if this may be duplicating questions from last time, but I was not here. It looks like, just based on my quick reading of this earlier, that the planning board's participation in approvals, it's already established, right?
That's correct.
So to what extent does this change our role, so to speak?
So there were two reasons why this, why the changes are being brought forward. One was to bring us into conformance with any provisions of the Spectrum Act.
Okay.
So that was one impetus. The second piece of it was to allow for small-scale cellular nodes. And so there is in this particular version, if a proposed node were to be within 50 feet of a residential dwelling, would potentially come to the planning board for review. Other than that, the planning board's current role would be in the review and approval of a large-scale, what you typically think of as a cellular tower. So of which I don't think we've had any that have been constructed since maybe the early 2000s, were when the majority were done. And since then, we've certainly issued permits under this ordinance, but those have been specific for replacement of antennas, co-locations of antennas. There've been, additional, swap outs of generators and equipment and things like that, that have fallen within the confines of this ordinance.
So what is our next step?
So the next step for this is the selectmen have a public hearing that's scheduled for this on, I believe, October 25th. Yeah, I mean, that's the next step for this process.
And does the planning board need to be there?
Yes. Yeah, our typical process has been to hold the public, so let me back up. The planning board is required to hold a public hearing for any proposed ordinance amendments. Our typical process has been to hold the planning board public hearing and the board of selectmen public hearing at the same
same
meeting. We certainly don't have to do it that way, but it's it's a lot easier whenever you're doing the notifications that we just notice both boards at the same time.
Okay, so that's October 25th. Do we need a quorum?
That's a
Yes.
Tuesday.
So we need at least 3 people there. And if there's a difference of
Tuesday.
opinion, we need at least 4 people there, maybe 5.
Generally in Boston.
Yep.
So,
It should be a Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
25th? Oh, I must be looking at September, I apologize.
I won't be here, so I'll talk to Tom.
I think I'm around, so I think I can be there.
Okay.
That's correct. That's a Thursday, October
Yep.
25th.
So I guess that's at 6 PM?
Yeah, the
Yes.
Board of Selectmen meets at 6 PM, not 7.
They've typically met at 6.
Okay,
So if several of the planning board
yeah, I'll go.
members can make
can
it,
make
it would help.
All right.
Probably Tom will be there,
Oh, yeah,
but it would help if there were a couple other members.
okay.
Should we continue this to the next hearing? Not that I'm not going to be here for the next hearing, so that we can actually review this and discuss before any public hearing, or most likely?
Yeah, we can certainly, I mean, we can keep it on your agenda,
Yeah.
you know, as
I
another
think we should
business
keep it
item.
on the agenda now that we have the full ordinance and let people look it over and
Yeah.
come in with any questions.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and, I apologize to Tom, and I'll do that to the rest of the board as well. You know, I think, he was surprised at the fact that there was a telecommunications ordinance, a
So was
separate
I.
ordinance that the town had, that the planning board had responsibilities for. So, it's just, we haven't had anything that's come up, for the planning board, since I've been here, under this ordinance. So, it's not one that rises up very often. Again, because most of what occurs now is just, has been co-locations. So,
okay.
Is this available for public review online now?
yeah, it should be, yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote to continue discussion?
No,
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 okay.
we just,
Well,
yeah, we
Put it on
can,
the agenda.
yeah, we can
We'll
just
keep
continue
it
to
on
have
the
it on the
agenda
agenda.
and keep
Yep.
going. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions about it, discussion? Okay. I'll take a motion to
So,
adjourn.
Before we leave it though, so, I mean, are there any open issues that we need to focus on? I mean, or is we just, I'm really kind of lost on this still. I mean, it's very interesting, but I don't really know what it is we need to be doing with it.
So,
What preparation?
so what it is, it's, and some communities deal with it very differently, and we are also in a process of doing a codification of the town's ordinances. So ultimately, you're going to wind up with an ordinance for the town of Kennebunkport that's going to look very differently than what we're used to dealing with now. But many other communities really just will have wireless telecommunications as a set of performance standards within their own land use ordinance. For whatever reason, and I don't know, Kennebunkport has it as its own separate standalone ordinance, which personally I don't really like. I'd prefer to have it within the same body, just as a performance standard section. But for whatever reason, that's that's what we have. Historically, there have been other times throughout the town's history where there have been a multitude of different ordinances that were all separate and then got brought back together. Site plan review used to be a separate ordinance. Shoreline zoning was a separate ordinance at one point.
Well, based on your prior experience, what are the likely issues to come up during the public hearing?
So from what I recollect from looking at old applications, and this was with the large-scale towers, there were questions from abutters regarding interference issues. There were questions and issues concerning aesthetics. those types of things were what were brought up as issues. The large towers are really, were only permitted in the free enterprise zone, and so I suspect, once all of the prime locations were, had been scoped out and had been located, that ended that. That ended the development of larger scale towers. And so what we have now are, again, new technology that's suggesting these smaller co-located nodes within your denser populated areas helps deal with the increased data demands that are out there.
So the public probably isn't gonna have any comments, except aesthetics. And if it's-
Correct.
If it's
Yep.
small nodes, it might not be visible.
Yep. And then, and the nodes themselves, they are, they're, again, about the size of a fire hydrant, that sit on top of existing utility poles.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So for most folks, generally speaking, in terms of your sight lines, you don't even necessarily see them unless you're looking up at the top of the poles.
Right.
Actually, if you want to see one, if you go into Wells on Route 1, directly across from the current police and fire department at that intersection.
Oh, right,
In Wells.
right near Joshua's,
Not, yeah,
at the traffic
in
light.
that same general area, there's one located on top of that.
There's an Irving gas.
There's an
station.
Irving right there as
Yeah.
well. Yep,
Okay.
at that intersection.
All right.
Yep,
It's across from the fire and police there in Wells.
yep,
It's just on the turn off to the Highway 95.
yep. Yeah, I found myself at that intersection sitting there and all of a sudden looked up and said, oh, well,
Okay.
that's what they look like. But you did, I think, you have to make a concentrated effort to, to notice it, and honestly, if I didn't know that that's what it was, I don't think it looks not too different than from a transformer, it's just at a higher elevation.
Right, it's not orange or anything, and it's probably gray like
Right.
a transformer.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, some communities will specify a color, that they want to see them, so that they blend in. But again, where it, it winds up being on top of an existing utility, they're, I don't think that they're it's very noticeable unless you make a concerted effort to look up.
Okay. Great, thank you, yep.
Any other questions, discussion? Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, good.
I'll wait for Tom to